Hello, welcome back to Jacob Rising. This is the Rain video documentary series, episode 4. Today we are going to dive into episode 1, A Chance of Rain, which released at the end of January. In this episode, I want to break down 3 important scenes in episode 1. I will be having another video coming out later as a director's commentary where I commentate the entire episode so I can kind of go into more detail on scenes that I don't talk about in these type of episodes. But when episodes release, I want to take like 3 important scenes in the episode and then kind of dive deep and talk about like the character motivations and why things are happening as they are, and kind of have little Easter eggs and teasers as to what's coming up without spoiling obviously what's going to be happening later on in the show. Obviously there's other scenes happening in this episode that I'm not talking about, and they are just as important. But I feel like these 3 scenes kind of stand out the most out of everything that happens in this episode. And like I said, there will be director's commentaries to go over everything that I don't talk about in this behind the scenes video. So welcome to video documentary series episode 4, which I'm going to be calling Inside Rain Series 3 episode 1, A Chance of Rain. It's been such a long time since I've made a Rain episode that I wanted this episode to kind of set expectations and kind of allow the audience to kind of see where everyone's been, because it's been so long since I've done Rain, but it's also been 2.8 years since series 2. A lot has happened in my life that has affected me as a person, as a writer, as a content creator. So series 3 to some extent feels like a soft reboot of the series. It continues the story from series 1 and 2. Nothing's been retconned. It's just such a complete tone shift that I feel like having certain characters be recasted, it's symbolic. Let's dive into the episode. First things first, why is it called A Chance of Rain? I think it's actually kind of funny because I've made it very clear in the series that it's raining constantly and it hasn't stopped raining for years. The title kind of makes fun of itself, like of course it's going to be raining. I never thought I would come back to series 3, so A Chance of Rain I think is kind of symbolic for that reason as well, because I'm now having the chance to create more rain. I'm obviously going to be finishing it this time, so the title is kind of a poke to me, but it's also a poke to the show that of course it's going to be raining. The first scene I want to talk about is the very first scene at the beginning of the episode. After the recap and the introduction, we see Chloe Moody. This is taking place several years before series 2, because Chloe was introduced in Rain series 2 several years before the events of series 1 when she wasn't even in the show. And she's on the phone, she's talking to a friend, and she's getting very excited about something which we don't know. Then she gets a phone call and she answers the phone and she hears something, but we don't know what it is yet. Then we cut to her in therapy. One thing I really wanted to prioritize in series 3 is character development. And I really wanted to emphasize like these characters matter. I care about their thoughts. I care about what they're thinking and like what their motivations are. And in series 2, back in 2013, Chloe Moody was a comedic character in the sense of like she did all this crazy stuff.
I have now made up my mind. I am going to do whatever it takes to get to you. I love you, Tom. I love you, and I want you inside of me. Let's fuck on the table.
Did you even pay attention?
It's clear to me that you are purposely refusing me, only to make me want you more.
What?
And it's working, baby. Just for the love of God, please. Please. Please fuck me, Tom.
Slapstick humor, over the top, crazy, funny humor, or at least my type of humor back when I was like 20 years old back in 2013, which is almost 10 years ago now. I thought it would be really interesting to see real world consequences for Chloe's character after series 2. She was obviously mentally not all there, and she was very sex deprived, and she kept trying to seduce Tom, who was not wanting to be with her. And I thought it was really interesting to take that comedic aspect of a character who just wanted to have sex constantly and kind of see what happens later where she's not able to fulfill her desires, and what does that do to her psyche.
You keep mentioning another person in our talks, only using words like he, his, or him. Do you know who I'm referring to?
Yes.
Does that cause her to become very depressed And does that make her lose her mind, that she has to seek out therapy because maybe she's trying to get better as a person and move on from that experience?
Who is he? Why were you so pulled to him?
He reminded me of someone.
It must have been obviously very traumatizing for Chloe to kind of go through that, and looking back, she's embarrassed by who she was as a person, and she's obviously in therapy to become a better person and move on. But clearly there's something about Tom, as she mentions in this scene with Jennifer, who is her psychologist.
Why does he remind you of your ex?
He just acted like him. Like he literally was him.
There's something about Tom that makes her go crazy. There's something about him, which we'll find out eventually, what makes her so like insane that she has to be with this person.
I'm sorry, but I gotta go.
Tom! Fuck! God damn! Why was he fucking here? Of all the fucking places.
I really wanted to explore Chloe's psychological mental state, because she did all those horrific things in series 2, and I think in series 3 those have real world consequences, and we see her struggling, we see her really depressed, because in series 2 she's full of energy and life, and in series 3 she's literally just dead. She's depressed, she's sad, she's monotone, she's very psychologically damaged from all the stuff she did 2.8 years ago in the story. So I really wanted to explore that side of Chloe, and like I said, Reign Series 3 is a very serious show. It's very dramatic, it's a drama, it's not comedic anymore, and I really want to explore more of Chloe's character. Chloe has been recasted. She used to be voiced by Izzy DeLay in series 2. I was unable to reach out to Izzy DeLay, and therefore I recasted her with the wonderful actress Marie Claire Wood, who's actually from the United Kingdom, so it's an authentic accent that Chloe's now being voiced by. And there's obviously more for Chloe coming up in Reign, and Marie Claire is phenomenal, and she does a brilliant job at portraying Chloe's journey as a character. So there's so much to come for Chloe. She's a pivotal part of this series, and I can't wait to show you what's next on her journey. Next up, I want to talk about the longest scene in episode 1, which includes the aliens, Daryl, who is the crazy professor guy, but now we just have him as Daryl, and then we have Frank, who obviously wields fire. That's one thing I want to make clear in series 3, is these characters have names. In series 2, I would always be like the guy that with fire on his head, or the French guy. In series 3, I really want to make it clear that these characters have names. So the fire guy, his name is Frank. The French guy, his name is Leo Busson. In this scene, we see Grapes and Lobster, and they're trying to figure out some type of problem. And Daryl is obviously employed by the university, and now he's kind of like in control of this section of the university where they kind of analyze the rain. And that's another thing I wanted to make a big deal in this 3rd season, is like, why is it raining? Like, there must be a reason. In series 1, I hinted at a reason, and then I kind of just glossed over it and like, it's just a coincidence. And then in series 2, it continues to rain, and people kind of just forget about the problem until the very end. And they're like, wait, it's still raining, like what's going on? Because people kind of forgot, like, this is like my life now, and they didn't question it. But then the characters question it because they just noticed, like, hey, like, I obviously wasn't a coincidence, it's still raining. And then in series 3, I really wanted to make an effort for a plot line for the aliens, Skept, Lobster, and Grapes, to figure out why exactly is it raining. And spoiler alert, in the show, in this season, you will find out exactly why it's raining. There is a reason. It's not just a coincidence, but we don't know what that is yet. And Grapes, Lobster, and Skept are currently trying to figure out why is it raining, and they're trying to get this antenna in the university's science lab to kind of just work and turn on, so they can kind of just figure out, their space, and just see like if there's anything abnormal going on. Every single scene in series 3 has a purpose. It is not there just to fill up time. Every single scene in this series, from episodes 1 to 14, every scene has a purpose, and I want to make that very clear. So if you're watching something, it has a reason. It's going to connect to something later on in the show. So, kind of pay attention to everything happening in the series. So they're trying to figure out why it's raining, and they're going to try to get the antenna turned on, but obviously it's not turning on at the moment, and that's where we pivot to the character Daryl. So in series 1 and 2, Daryl never had a name. He was just the professor before he went kind of crazy. Then he went crazy, and then he just became the crazy professor.
I can't let this happen. I need to stop the breeders. So I'll destroy you first.
But we never knew his name. And as I said before, I'm really trying to humanize a lot of these characters and give them, backstories. Every character matters. And series 3 is literally a character-driven story. The main goal is to figure out why it's raining, but in between that main plot, there's little subplots of other characters doing their lives. Daryl confronts Frank at some point because Frank is still traumatized as to what happened to him almost 3 years ago when he fought the crazy professor who was Daryl, but just under control of this different persona. Unlike Chloe, who remembers everything she did, Daryl doesn't. He was in a trance, he doesn't remember. It's literally like something took over his body.
Look, I'm the type of guy who fixes their mistakes. I royally fucked up. I wish I remembered, but it was almost like I was being controlled by something. That's what makes sense to me when people tell me what I did.
He feels very guilty, but also very angry because there's literally this entity that is now suddenly gone, and like all the blame is put on him, and he feels responsible, but he's also upset because he knows he didn't do it, even though some form of him obviously did.
I'm just so fucking angry.
A lot of people have kind of gotten over that because they trust Daryl, because obviously it's been such a long time and nothing has really happened with him. So, the aliens, Skept, Lobster, and Grapes, they've forgiven Daryl because they clearly see he's a different person. But Frank hasn't forgiven him. Frank is still pissed off because he was in direct combat with the professor.
How can I just forget about that?
That happened almost 3 years ago, and I told you it wasn't me. Everybody else believed me, why can't you?
'Cause they weren't in direct combat with you like I was!
How long are you gonna hold this against me?
Probably forever.
Everyone believes him except Frank, and that really bothers him and that really gets to him. And he gets so angry that he actually changes the weather. Much like how some point later on in the series I'm going to explain why it's raining, I'm also going to explain why these characters have certain abilities. Why does Frank have fire on his head, and why does Daryl have electricity around him? All these have answers, and they will be explained later in the show. We get a little sneak peek of Daryl's abilities where he gets very upset and he causes a lightning storm.
What?
Holy shit!
Eventually, it causes the radio tower to turn on, which allows the aliens to be one step closer to figuring out why it's raining. But we see a demonstration of Daryl's abilities without him trying to do it, and then we see Frank kind of go, oh, okay, so maybe there is something about what Daryl is saying is true, because clearly he might have done that on purpose, maybe he didn't, but clearly there's something happening here, and I should probably pay more attention to what Daryl is saying. But I'm still pissed off about him because obviously, he did this, and it just kind of reminded Frank of the professor could always come back any minute if he lets his guard down. The last scene that I want to talk about is the last scene specifically with Tom Raines. Tom is a character like other characters that I really wanted to explore because we don't know who Tom is as a character. Like, who is he as a person? We saw him in series 1.
What's with all the rain recently? I just seem to notice that it only rains when I'm around.
Well, could it be about how you feel?
Huh?
Maybe it's raining because about how you feel.
That's impossible. That would be like some kind of paranormal activity or something.
Very mellow, very chill, very laid back guy, but that's kind of all we knew about Tom. And then in series 2, I wanted to flip that, and then we see a calm, collective person be thrown into these crazy situations, and he's literally freaking out.
Whoa! Don't do that!
could create a force field?
And I thought that was exciting as a writer, but we still don't really know who Tom is. We just see him react to things, but we don't know what he feels about certain things, you know, his interests, his hobbies, his background. We don't know anything. So I wanted to tease Tom's backstory. And at the very end, we see him, you know, come home. He walks into his apartment. He sees a picture of him and someone else. And we don't know who that person is yet. And then he goes to bed, and then we have all these gun sounds and war sounds. And then he says,
"Not now. Snap out of it."
This is the first time we ever see Tom have a sign of post-traumatic stress disorder. We flash back 8 years ago to him in the UNSC, and he's in combat, and he meets this person named Ace, who was the person on the picture frame. Then we see them run into battle, and then that's where episode 1 ends. And that's setting up Tom's backstory. We're actually going to learn a lot about Tom in the next episode. We're going to learn about his past. We're going to learn a little bit about his parents. We're just going to learn a lot about him, finally. We're not going to see him react to stuff all the time. Like, obviously, every character reacts to stuff, but we're going to learn about Tom Raines as a character. And that's very exciting because there's so much I can't wait to talk about that I'll talk about in the next Inside episode for episode 2. This has been an inside look at Rain Series 3 episode 1. I will be releasing a director's commentary at some point where I break down kind of every scene and go into detail further that I didn't go into detail in this behind the scenes video. These type of behind the scene or inside episodes are going to be me breaking down, I would say probably up to 3 very important scenes throughout the episode and giving more clarification on what's going on, what's setting it up. But this is really fun as me as a creator because I think this is the best thing I've ever written. I'm very happy with how everything went, and the best part is, like I said, everything's been written out before I started creating everything. So everything that's in this episode sets up future events in other episodes, and they're going somewhere. And I love planting seeds, and it's a lot of fun to do that as a writer. Thank you so much for watching. This was Rain Series 3, Episode 4 for the video documentary series, but it was the inside for Episode 1. Episode 2, at the time of making this video, is 33% done. I'm trying to release it sometime in April, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next Rain Series 3 video.